Hi and welcome to What Helen Reads. I'm Helen and today I've got a book haul for you. Now, I'm sitting in front of what I can describe as a bookshelf, but you can see from what's behind me that I don't have a lot of books on it, and the ones that are there are not actually mine, they're my husband's. He reads a lot of fantasy books, he likes David Gemmell, David Eddings, that sort of thing, and that's probably majority of what you can see behind me. I've got a few books behind me on this shelf just here, and you can see things like Twilight and some other books by Stephanie Meyer, and that's mainly because I am not a massive book buyer. I am also not a collector of books like a lot of other bookstagrammers or booktubers. I do love books. I have bought a lot of books over the years, but I've never really kept them. So before Kindle was around and I read a lot, I either used to borrow books from the library and return them, or I would buy books, read them, and then kind of give them back to charity shops or sell them to other people. And in more recent years I've very much taken to the Kindle, so a lot of the books that I have are either read via Kindle Unlimited. I'm a massive Kindle Unlimited user, and if I buy anything I buy the electronic version and they are stored on my Kindle. I also have an Audible subscription, so I've got some audiobooks on there, but again they're obviously digital copies and not physical copies. That said, I do look at people's bookshelves. You know, I think some people have got absolutely beautiful collections. So I started to get a bit of FOMO from seeing other people's bookshelves because they are beautiful. Lots of people have lots of lovely collections. And so I decided that I would start a small book collection of my own. Now, my intention is not to go crazy and buy loads and loads of books, particularly books I haven't yet read. What I intend to do is purely buy books that I've read and absolutely loved and think that I might want to read again or maybe annotate. So that's what I started to do. Now, in January it was my birthday, and so I asked for quite a few books for both Christmas and my birthday, as well as sort of Kindle vouchers and things like that, Amazon vouchers, so that I could buy some additional books. So what I'm going to do today is show you what I actually decided to buy or ask for Christmas and got from people in terms of the books that I wanted to have in my collection. So in no particular order, I've got them out on here. The first book I'm going to start with is My Killer Vacation by Tessa Bailey. Now, I haven't actually read this book. It was given to me as a Secret Santa present because people know that I love reading romance books, and so my Secret Santa very kindly bought this one for me. So like I said, I haven't read anything by Tessa Bailey before. I know lots of people do really like her, and I haven't read this particular book, but I will. I do plan on reading it, and I will let you know what I think of it when I get around to it. So that's the first one. So next up, and again like I say in no particular order, I asked for Ruthless Stranger by Maggie. Now this is book 1 in her Mafia Wars series, of which there's 10 in the original series, and there's now a spin-off as well for Mafia Wars New York. I haven't read Mafia Wars New York, but I have read all 10 books in this first series. So this first book follows Maxim and Aspen. Maxim is the eldest brother of the Ivanov family, and they are based in Chicago. And Aspen is a lady that he meets in Las Vegas, but she also happens to live in Chicago, and they meet, fall in love, and eventually get together. So while this is not necessarily everyone's favourite book in the series, I know other people have other favourites, I absolutely love reading this one. I was blown away by the book. It's got an absolutely amazing cliffhanger at the end that really makes you want to read book 2. And I just absolutely loved it. So even though I read the whole series, there's some other really great books in there. Relentless Hunter, which is the last one, is probably my favourite because it kind of rounds up all of the storylines. It goes back quite far in time, right through to the current, and I absolutely love their love story. But in terms of impact and really wanting to read the rest of the series, and the hero Maxim in this one I absolutely love. What I love about this is that they're an older couple. He's in his late 40s, she's in her late 30s, and they just make a fantastic couple. So the next one that I picked up is Still Beating by Jennifer Hartmann. Now, I read this book when it was recommended. Lots of booktubers have recommended this one, and if you've watched some of their, you know, favourites of 2022, this is very much on a lot of people's lists. But I actually heard about it first from Tori from A Novel Life, and based on that I put it on my TBR, and I sat on it for quite a few months because I was waiting for the right time to read it. I knew it would probably be emotional, and I wanted to be in the right headspace when I read this one, and I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I waited. It was a brilliant read. It was quite grueling in places, but it's an absolutely amazing love story, which I really thoroughly enjoyed and would highly recommend. So basically, this is a dark romance. It tells the story of who's in this one. So we've got Cora and Dean. So basically, Cora's elder sister is engaged to Dean. They've known each other a long time because her sister and Dean were kind of childhood sweethearts. They've been together a long time, around the family a long time, and they've kind of got this love-hate relationship where they're constantly teasing each other and playing pranks on each other, and really Cora just thinks Dean is so annoying, and they're not the greatest of friends at the start of this book. But they go out for a night out. Dean goes home with his fiance and Cora stays out, but she's out, she can't get a taxi home, and she rings Dean for a lift. Now he comes to collect her, and on the way back home they get pulled over to the side of the road by what they think is a policeman, but he turns out to be a psychopath serial killer. He captures them both and locks them up in the basement of his house. Now, for about 30% of this book, they are trapped in this basement. He makes them do horrible things. He does horrible things to Cora, and he makes Dean do some unsavoury things to Cora as well. But because this is a romance and it does have a happy ever after, they do escape. And then the rest of the book, which is the following 2/3, is about how they come to terms with what happened to them, how it changes their relationship, how Dean's relationship changes with her sister, and how they end up basically together. So this is, like I say, quite dark. It's quite grueling and harrowing to read in places, but it's also an amazing love story, and I love the storytelling in this. So the next on my list is Off to the Races by Elsie Silver. So again, if you've not heard of Elsie Silver, then you've probably not been watching the same booktubers as me. The popularity for her books has gone crazy last year, and she's particularly known, I think, for her second series, and the book Heartless, which is the latest one that she's brought out as I'm currently filming this, but I know the third one's coming out shortly. And I first heard about this author from Caitlin from The Love Librarian, because she absolutely loves Elsie Silver. And like I say, most booktubers have got Heartless on their favourite book for 2022, or at least somewhere in their top 10. And I also was really intrigued and wanted to read Heartless. But I am a bit of a completionist, and I don't like starting in the middle of an author's sort of career, if you like. I like to go back to the beginning. So I decided I wasn't going to pick up Heartless straight away. I was going to pick up Off to the Races, which is the first book in her Gold Rush Ranch series, which is 4 books in this one. There's a novella as well, but there's 4 main books. The reason I've bought this, for 2 reasons. One, because it was the first series that I literally read back to back in a very long time. So I do complete series, and I like to complete series, but often I read the first 2 or 3 books and then take a pause and like read some more. Very rarely do I literally read a whole series back to back, and I just loved this book so much. I thought the romance was amazing, the characters were great, the banter between them, and also there's a horse in this one. It's basically, you know, set on a ranch. The main character, I think her name is Billy, doesn't say on the back, but I'm pretty sure her name's Billy. And now I'm actually wondering. Yeah, Billy. She is a horse race trainer and she goes to the Gold Rush Ranch to train their horses. They've got a particularly difficult horse called Dee Dee. Dee Dee for me stills the show. Unfortunately I'm allergic to horses. That's a story for another time. But if I did have a horse, then I would love a horse like Dee Dee. He's absolutely amazing. He stole the show for me, but also the relationship between Billy and Vaughan in this book is absolutely amazing as well. And I love the ending to this one as well. So I went on to read all 4 in the series, and then I have read Flawless and Heartless as well, and I do agree Heartless is amazing, but I wanted to start my collection somewhere and I started at the beginning, which is what I like to do. And the other thing is I'm going to Rare 23 in London, which is a book signing in London later this year, and Elsie Silver's going to be there, so I wanted a couple of her books so that I can take them and that she can sign them for me, hopefully. So the next 2 books, this is sort of a duet. It's part of a 7-book series, but it is King and Tyrant. So you've got King by T M Frazier and then Tyrant by T M Frazier as well. So like I say, this is part of the King series. It's a 7-book series, but the first 2 books are a duet, then the second 2 books, like books 3 and 4 are a duet, and then books 5, 6 and 7 are kind of like a bit of a trilogy, but all set in the same world. So I've read the first 2. I did not go on to read book 3. I will at some point read it. This was a book that I read in 2021 and was one of my favourites of 2021. It's a book that stayed with me for a long time, and therefore I wanted it in my collection. But I tend to find the books that stay with me, books like Still Beating for example, and this one, tend to be darker romances. They're a bit harder to read. The story writing tends to cover sort of more difficult subject matters where bad things happen to the characters and they have much bigger uphill battles to kind of get out of the situations they're in. And I absolutely loved King and Tyrant. They were amazing, but because of the content that it covered, because of the darkness of the story almost, it meant that I wasn't quite ready to dive into book 3, especially because it was a duet and I knew I was kind of like then committing to 2 more books. And also book 3, books 5, 6 and 7 are focused on a character that you meet in this book, and something bad happens to him at the end of this book. So we kind of already know, without any spoilers, we kind of already know what's going to happen to him, and therefore I was reluctant to kind of read his story. But anyway, I read this because I absolutely love mafia romances, and this showed up as a bit of a mafia romance, or in that genre. It's not really mafia. If anything, it's MC, although it's not really MC either. Basically, King is a criminal, no doubt about it. He's a criminal. He hangs around with some unsavoury people. He does hang around with the local MC club, and one of his best friends is a man called Bear, who is kind of in this MC club. And so he hangs around with them, but he's not a patched in member, but he is a bit of a criminal. He's done some bad things, and he has a child with a lady who is a bit of a drug addict, and unfortunately he's responsible for the mother's house burning down, and then he goes to prison. If I'm remembering this correctly, and then he goes to prison. And when he comes out of prison, he goes back to his home, and he's kind of around the MC people, and they're kind of having a bit of a party to sort of kind of celebrate him coming out of prison. And then basically the heroine of the story is a lady. She doesn't know who she is. Basically, she's called Doe, a bit like a Jane Doe. She has no memory beyond waking up behind the back of a dumpster. She is taken to hospital but she has lost all her memory, and she's kind of has no money, has no identity. They can't find out who she belongs to or who she is, and she kind of ends up living on the street. And she befriends a kind of local prostitute, and she says to her, you know what, let's go down to the MC party. if you get in with one of the MC guys, you can maybe become his old lady. They'll look after you, protect you, and then, you know, you've got somewhere to be and we don't have to worry. So they go to this MC party. She kind of bumps into King. He's very, very scary, and he kind of catches her in his room. She's just about to steal off with some money that she finds in his drawer, and he drags her back and he chains her to his bed and kind of decides he's going to punish her for stealing some cash from him. And so he's holding her sort of captive, but he figures out pretty quickly she doesn't know who she is, and we start to find out a bit more about her background. Something is not quite right. We think King knows something. King definitely knows something. We don't know what he knows. And the friend that she had who ran off and wasn't captured also knows some things as well. And so it's kind of like a captive situation, but not 100%. He's kind of keeping her there intentionally, kind of by force, but he's not necessarily doing anything too horrible to her. But it's basically how they kind of unravel and discover what is actually going on. Now when we get to book 2, it kind of, so book 1 kind of ends where her memory comes back and she finally realises, well, no, her memory doesn't come back. What happens is her family find her and they take her home. And in Tyrant, everything seems normal when she goes home. She very much misses King, because by the end of book 1 she's in a relationship with King, but she feels like she needs to go home because of who she finds out that she is. And then her memory starts to come back and she realises that maybe being home is not as safe as being with King. So that's kind of how that goes. So that's a bit of a rambling explanation and I don't want to give too much away, but if you are interested in that kind of book, I would highly recommend these. Like I say, even though I find it quite grueling and difficult to read in places, it's definitely worth the read. Okay, so then I didn't just buy 1 book, I bought 4 books, and it was the entire series of Queens and Monsters by J.T. Geissinger. So at first I only got the first one, so my sister actually bought me Ruthless Creatures for my birthday. And when I realised, because basically she bought it from Amazon, and on Amazon it showed the alternative black and white covers, not the covers with the heroes on the front. But when it turned up and it had this, I was like, oh my god, you managed to get the hero covers. I need the rest of them. So luckily I had a voucher as well, an Amazon voucher, and I bought the rest of the series. So I've got Ruthless Creatures, and obviously the second one, which is most people's favourites, Carnal Urges. Then we've got Savage Hearts, and then finally Brutal Vows. So I'm just going to hold up Ruthless Creatures because it's the first one, but I've got the whole set. So like I said before, I absolutely love a mafia romance, and I read all of these this year. I've also listened to all of the audiobooks as well. So I read the first one at this was Jen from the Book Refuge recommended this one, or that's how I first heard about it, but obviously lots of people are talking about it. And so I took this one on holiday with me and I read it, obviously on Kindle at the time. Absolutely loved it. I rated it 4 stars, and which is pretty good for me because I'm a pretty harsh star rater. Don't really give books 5 stars very often, and in fact where other booktubers maybe give books 6 stars, I don't do 6 stars, I just stick to the 5 stars and stick to the Goodreads rating. So a 4 is I really liked it, and then 5 was it's amazing. So most books that I read tend to be 4 stars, 3 or 4 stars, and then if it's really, really good, then it gets, you know, if it's up there as my top of the year, then it gets a 5 star. Anyway, the reason I'm telling you this is because first time around I gave it 4 stars, absolutely brilliant book, solid, enjoyed it thoroughly. And then when I went back and listened to the audiobook, I realised my mistake and I upgraded this one to a 5 star. Because I think with a bit of distance, and also having listened to the audiobook later in the year and comparing it to all the other books I'd read in 2022, I just realised again how amazing this one was. So I absolutely love the hero in this one, Cage basically, Casimir, and the heroine. And I kind of love the mystery of this one because the heroine in this one was due to be married, and basically the day before her wedding her fiance completely disappears. No one knows what's happened to him, no one knows if he's dead, and he's been gone 5 years. So basically 5 years later, in the state that she lives in, once you've been missing for 5 years, you're officially kind of like pronounced dead. And so she's kind of going through quite a difficult time. She's never really got over it. She doesn't know what's happened. She's kind of been left in limbo, and now she's facing the fact that he's probably never coming back. He probably definitely is dead, but she doesn't know what happened to him. And then Cage comes onto the scene, and he's a Russian Bratva member. He's been sent to track her down. We don't really know why, but we know it's got something to do with the fiance. And so I really like the mystery of this in terms of what happened to the fiance, where he is, what Cage knows, why he's there, and but the romance between these two is amazing. And I absolutely love the banter and the dialogue. J.T. Geissinger writes amazing dialogue, really sexy scenes as well, and the relationship between the main character in this one, and I can't remember her name, Nat, and Sloane, who is her best friend, actually it is the best part, and I think that's why most people's favourite is Carnal, because Sloane, this is Sloane's book. Sloane is an amazing character. She's absolutely badass, kick-ass, gorgeous, lots of positivity, affirmations, and you know, someone you could really aspire to want to be like, and their banter again is amazing. I know loads of people like Carnal, they love Daddy Declan, but actually for me, this always happens with me, I always go against the you know, the majority, but Carnal was actually my least favourite of the series. I mean, they're all absolutely amazing, they're all 4 or 5 stars, but I think if I had to pick, this would actually be my 4th favourite. But it's still absolutely amazing, and I don't disagree with other people, and I can completely see why it's other people's favourites. However, like I say, if you've read the audiobooks of these, then you'll know that Troy Duran is the narrator of these. It's the first time I've listened to a Troy Duran narrated novel, and his voice is absolutely amazing. Everything they say about him is right. He narrates all of the books in this series, and he absolutely does justice to the male characters in this series. It's absolutely amazing. So I would highly recommend not only the books but also the audiobooks as well. And of course I have to mention the last one, which is Brutal Vows. Not only is this gorgeous model here on the front cover, but Spider is my absolute favourite. He definitely goes through a journey throughout the series, and the relationship between him and Raina is spot on. I love the banter between these two. I love the chemistry between these two. The storyline is amazing. Raina is badass. If anything, she's even more badass than Sloane. Hard to imagine, I know, but I definitely think she is, and she is the queen of queens. So this is called Queens and Monsters. Raina is the ultimate queen, and my absolute favourite of the series. So I highly recommend the whole series, but also that last book. The remaining ones that I've got to share with you are actually all historical romances. Now, I've never really been a massive historical romance reader. Very rarely as well are historical romances on Kindle Unlimited, and that's how I mainly read my books. So I read majority of the books that I read are Kindle Unlimited books. But again, quite a lot of the YouTubers that I watch love historical romances and pick out some favourites, and I've been adding them to my TBR. I've got like a wish list on Amazon, and I keep adding them in there when someone suggests one that I really like the sound of. So I thought, again, with my vouchers, I would actually take the opportunity to purchase some historical romances. Most of these are recommendations I got from Janet the Book Refuge. She has some great recommendations for all romance genres, but also historical romances. And the first one that I picked up was Candace Camp, which is a momentary marriage. Now, I want to say I've not read any of these, so I don't really have a lot to share in terms of what the books are about. But if I'm remembering correctly, and the reason I picked this one was because not only Jen said it's one of her favourites, but also I like the sound of it. And if I'm remembering correctly, the hero in this one is sick and he's dying, and the heroine needs financial stability and help. So he agrees to marry her, or you know, basically says, do you want to marry me? And then I'm not going to be around for very long. but when I die you can inherit all of my stuff and you'll be financially safe and secure. So she agrees to marry him, and of course she looks after him in his sickness. And I understand this, I mean, at the end of the day, this is a romance that's got happy ever after, so we can pretty much surmise he doesn't die. I think that's a bit of a twist in terms of what, you know, how come, why not, and they fall in love. So I thought I'd give that one a go. Then the next one I picked up was The Madness of Lord Ian MacKenzie by Jennifer Ashley. So Jen sold this one to me because she said it's a brilliant Highlander Scottish romance, and in this one Lord Ian MacKenzie is a Scottish laird. Absolutely amazing. Now I'm a little bit biased towards Scottish romances because my husband's a Scot, so I find them extremely sexy, and historical romances with Scottish heroes are some of my favourites, of the ones that I have actually read, not that I've read many, like I said. So this one is about Ian MacKenzie, who everyone thinks is mad. The ladies stay away from him, and anyone in his presence will be instantly ruined, apparently. But the heroine, is a lady called Beth, and she's drawn to him, wants to learn a bit more about him, and yeah, they get together. I'll let you know how I get on when I've read it. And then the last one that I picked up was Yours Until Dawn by Teresa Medeiros. So this is very shiny, so I apologise for that. Hopefully you can see that. Now this is a second-hand book. It came all the way from America, and it's got a little bit of wear on the spine, but otherwise, and the pages are quite brown, but otherwise it's in fairly good condition. Now when this came, I was really excited to see it actually had a step back in it, because one, I don't own any historical romances, but two, the ones that are kind of in the UK that you can get from bookstores and things don't have step backs in them, and I know a lot of the books in America, particularly the original like editions and stuff, had step backs. So I was just really happy to see that it did have one in here, because it's my first one and I've never seen one before, so that's kind of cool. But the reason I picked this one is because, again, I've not read it, so I'm not 100% sure, but I believe this one is a bit of a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what Jen from the Book Refuge said. And I am absolutely in love with Beauty and the Beast, and I love Beauty and the Beast retelling, so I'm really excited to get stuck into that one and read about that. And then there's one final one that I don't actually have in my possession, but I've ordered it and I'm waiting for it to come. Again, I think it must be coming from America, so it's taken a bit of time. But I purchased Again the Magic by Lisa Kleypas. Now, Jen absolutely loves Again the Magic. She reread it in 2022, said that it makes her cry, so I'm looking forward to that one, and I will report back and let you know how I got on with it. So I want to say thank you very much for watching, and I hope you'll like this video, subscribe so you can see more content from me, and comment down below if you've read any of these or have any other recommendations about books that you think I should buy. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Well, so today I am trying out my new camera, and already learned quite a lot, and one of those things is to actually get it to record something. Helen, you need to press the record button. Elsie Silver's really just gone crazy. Well, Elsie Silver's not gone crazy, but